In this video, I'm going to teach you how to add Photoshop elements to a floor plan that's rendered in SketchUp. Now, before we begin, I just want to make you aware of the fact that you can actually make these or add these Photoshop elements to any kind of drawing, whether it's a floor plan or an elevation, either created in SketchUp or in another software, or maybe created in AutoCAD and rendered by hand and scanned. So this process can work for many different drawing types, but the end result really is the same. So what I want to do first is show you how to prepare your SketchUp drawing to be able to be kind of manipulated in Photoshop. So to begin, you can see here I've got it set at a one-point perspective view, but actually I want to have a top view. So I'm going to go to View, actually Camera. I always confuse those two. Camera, and I'm going to go first to Standard Views at the top. I want to look at that top view. And I'm going to hide some of the elements that are getting in my way. Now, there may be a way to set the cut plane to just show things below a certain point in SketchUp, but I'm just doing it the quick way here and manually hiding elements that are going to get in my way here. So I'm just going through and hiding these things quickly. I'm going to go ahead and hide that. My computer's slowing down. I'm going to go ahead and hide that and that. I've got another little ceiling part I need to hide. A couple lines here. I don't want to get rid of these because I do want to keep them if I use this perspective later. But I do have to come in and hide things to get them out of my way. I'm also going to hide the pendant light because you wouldn't see that in a floor plan. And even though I love these scale figures here, I'm actually going to hide them because they're paper thin in plan view. So we'll go ahead and hide that. The next thing I'm going to do is I want to add the shadows here just because it'll make it look better when we take a look at it in Photoshop. So we're going to go ahead and add some shadows in. So you can see them a little here. We'll add some dynamism to the view. And the one part that's really, really important is to go to camera and we're going to hit this parallel projection because right now it's actually in perspective and the vanishing point is kind of far beyond the floor here down underground. But what we want to do is actually hit parallel projection and look what happens. Okay, so now you can't see the window here, which is unfortunate, but you can see this opening over here. And remember, your floor plan will have lots of different rooms, so you'll be able to kind of show a much bigger space. But for our purposes, I'm going to just export this room right now. And I'm going to go to export. Now, when I hit this button, it's going to ask me if I want to export it as a model or a graphic. I'm going to export this as a graphic, and it's going to go immediately to ask me where do I want to save these things. So I'm going to just go ahead and save this in a place where I can retrieve it and hit export. I've already done this before, so it's replacing a file. So I'm going to just let that do its work, and I'm going to pause. And when you see me next, I will be opening this file in Photoshop. Okay, so now that we're in Photoshop, we've got a lot of things that we would need to add to any rendered floor plan to really elevate it to the level of presentation quality. So I'm going to begin by just the basics, title, scale, north arrow, and some room labels and notes. So let me go ahead and just begin by cropping out some of the background so we've got some white behind us here. And so I want to just get right next to that end of the floor plan here. And even though your floor plan is going to be much larger, mine's going to be tiny. So I'm going to begin by doing a layer via cut and removing it from the background, and then going ahead and hiding or deleting that background. I'm going to leave it for right now. And you can see here, this is the alpha layer. This is clear behind it. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new layer, and I'm going to fill that layer with white. I'm going to hit OK. And so you can see I'm going to hit Control D to deselect. And I'm going to move this floor plan over here just so I've got some room to work with it. Now this canvas may not need to be this big, but I'm going to leave it as is for now. So let's go ahead and begin with title, scale, and north arrow. So for this one, we can just create a very simple text box here, and we can put in our title box. So my computer's getting tired, so it's going to be moving a little bit slow. But we are going to call this floor, all caps, remember. And let me go ahead and change my font color while I'm at it. I don't know why it's set to red. The last thing I drew was red, I think. So I hit OK. And now we're going to do left justified text, all capital letters. Okay. And then we can, this actually is going to be not to scale. You can see here, I'm going to teach you just a couple tricks here. I'm going to select this text and I'm going to bring in the paragraph character, and I'm just going to increase the spacing between the text just a little bit. This is some high-level Photoshop stuff, but it's good for us to learn it now. This means that the spacing between the text lines is going to be 16 point. I'm going to reduce the size of this down. And again, this is just good graphics. Remember that floor plan is more important than not to scale. And so that's why the text is a little bit smaller. I'm going to go ahead and move this over here like this. I'm going to get rid of this layer here, clicking on it and putting it in the trash. And then I've got my title and scale over here. Now I do need to bring in a north arrow, so I'm going to pause and grab one. Okay, so I've got my north arrow here. There's a lot of different north arrows out in the world. It doesn't matter which one you use as long as you've got one. So I'm going to click on this, Control C for copy, and then click over on my Photoshop file and Control V for paste. Now it's going to be really big, so I'm going to hit Control T to transform. Hold down my Shift button and get it kind of scaled down so it's nice and small, and hit Enter. And we'll go ahead and bring that over as well. Okay, it's not the most elegant one, but it'll work. The next thing that we want to do is I want to teach you how to draw some room labels. Now, all of your rooms need to be labeled, and so this is helpful for anyone who's presenting them or looking at them for clarity. Now, you can do keynotes over here if you want to, but you can also just create a text box with some outer glow in case you need to make it a little bit easier to read. Remember, we need to have our text kind of in the center of the room if we can, and nothing overlapping it. There's not really a great spot here, so I'm going to just create my text box over here, and this is going to be dining room. Remember, all caps, and remember that I'm going to just hit move for now. You can see it's below my other layer, so I got to bring that up over here so you can see it. And you still might not be able to see it very well. Let me try to move that up again. Oh, my computer's moving slowly. Okay, so we have a couple problems with this text. The first is that there's a typo. So I'm going to double click on that and change what it says. I'm going to change it from dining room to from dining tomb to dining room. I'm going to change the text from red to black. Now, you'll notice that you can see here, the text is really hard to read. There's not a lot of contrast. Now, we could change it to white, but that means that on dark floors or in dark areas, we're going to have white text, and on light floors, we're going to have dark text. That's going to be a lot of work. So what we're going to do instead is create an outer glow on this text. I'm going to double click on it over here. You can see I double clicked on the layer. And then I'm going to go to inner glow, inner shadow, outer glow. Okay, so I'm going to teach you how to do an outer glow on text. So first you check that box. You can't really see it right now. Then I'm going to double click here. And you can see my outer glow is white. I'm going to increase the opacity. Increase the noise. You can see here. Let's see. Change this to normal. And then see, I'm going to adjust the spread a little bit here. Okay, so now you can adjust these and you can change how it appears. And you just want to make it so it doesn't look distracting. If you like it with the white background and it's kind of spread out a little bit more, but maybe you want it just a little bit lighter. Here you can see you can adjust the opacity. You can adjust the noise. That's kind of the grittiness of it. Um, and again, this is kind of a neat feature here. You can play with it, decide which one you like best, but again, don't overdo it. Keep it simple. Just something like that works really well. So you've got your room labels on there. And then we want to make sure that we also add some scale figures and some camera views. So I'm going to pause again and I'm going to bring my scale figure in. Okay, so here's my scale figure now. Remember, scale figures are not required in floor plans, but they're really, really nice if you can put them in a couple places. You don't have to, but I want to at least show you how to do it. So I'm going to go ahead and do Control C for copy and Control V for paste. And you can see my scale figure is really big. Control T to transform. Hold down Shift and, oops, pardon me. Hold down my Shift key here. Make them a little bit smaller. Move over here, a little smaller still. I'm going to put this person right in front of that console piece. I'm going to hit enter, and then I'm going to use my magic wand tool to click over and get rid of the extra stuff around him. Control X to delete it. And then the only thing I'm going to do is zoom in just a little bit more. You can see that the scale figure is not really high resolution. And so I'm going to just move him over here, and I can rename him Scale Figure and adjust the opacity so that he's a little bit lighter. 50, 60%. And we do have a scale figure. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to teach you how to create some annotations, and then we need to also create our camera views here as well. Okay, now I'm going to teach you how to just create some annotation lines similar to a leader line here. I've got my pen tool selected and I'm holding down the shift button and I'm going to just click and drag. And that's how you make the line straight. Once again here, you'd want to label it, change the name of it, and then you double click and we'd want an outer glow here as well so that it's visible over the dark floor over there. I'm not going to do it now, just in the interest of time. And then all you need to add over here is the text box that says perhaps flooring, let's say. We want to make sure it's left justified and that our text box is large enough to try to get it on a single line. We're going to bring the size down to perhaps 11, and then we'll go ahead and move it. Now we need to move this over first because remember that leader line's a little bit long. We want to make sure the leader lines are as close as possible to the drawing itself just for increased clarity, and then shift and align, and any notes and leader lines can come there. Okay, the next thing that we're going to do is create a camera view. Now there's going to be a few places on your floor plan that are going to correspond to either camera views or perspective drawings. And so we want to make sure to indicate that first and foremost. So you can copy and paste your elevation tags into your Photoshop drawing just the same way that we've done these other elements, and we can also create a camera view. So we're going to start by bringing our elevation tag over onto our floor plan here. So let's go ahead and jump on over to AutoCAD. Now you can see I've brought the elevation tag over from model space over here, and I've actually brought it into the design development plan over here. I've changed the line weight to be just the bilayer, so it's going to show up black. And then because I'm not showing construction documents, I don't need all of these references to page numbers. All I really need is the drawing number. And since this is probably going to be, let's say, number 1 on the sheet, I can just change this to number 1. And once again, this number relates to which drawing it's going to be on my presentation sheet. I'm going to just move this over and down just a little bit. It may be a little too small. It may show up a little too small when I bring it into Photoshop, but we'll take a look. So I'm going to bring this over, Control C, and Control V. There it is. Okay, so it's going to come in really small once I transform it. Let me grab it again. Okay, it's kind of moving on its own layer, but that's okay. I'm going to just go ahead and transform it until it's nice and small inside. Things are going to come in a little bit strange when you bring them in from AutoCAD, and that's okay. You know, we're doing the best we can with the knowledge that we have. Um, you can, of course, make your own shapes and fill them in Photoshop if you want to. I'm going to bring that to the top layer, and I'm going to go ahead and do a layer via cut here so that all that white goes away. I'm selecting things using my right and left buttons on my mouse. So I'm going to turn this off. That's layer 6, that's layer 5. You can see I've got some to rename some of my layers here to make it a little bit easier. And then I just place this elevation tag over here. I'm going to remove a few more elements from it, use my magic wand tool, grab the items that are in the way, and now we'll go ahead and bring it over. There we go. Looks a little bit better. So let's say I was wanting to do an elevation of this wall over here. That's where I would place the tag. If I wanted an elevation of this wall, I would rotate the tag, and I would actually have to create a text box with a new number here because the number would be rotated, and we want to make sure that the number stays in the same orientation, but the arrow changes. Okay, so now we've got that view for our elevation tag. Stay with me, everybody. The next thing we're going to do is create a camera view. Now, this is a little bit tricky as well, but we're going to just kind of go through it step by step. What I am going to do is I'm going to duplicate this element over here because I want to actually keep a hold of that circle. I'm going to rename this as camera view, this layer. That way I've got 2 of them. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to say I'm going to put my camera view over here. I'm going to change from my rectangular marquee to my elliptical marquee. And I'm going to make a little small bubble over here. And I'm going to do again a layer via cut. And I'm going to get rid of the old layer. Let me see if I can find it so you can see why I need to start renaming my layers over here. Let me go ahead and see if I can move this over to get rid of it. That is camera view. So we're going to delete that. This is what we want as camera view. Double clicking. So let's say that this camera view in the dining room corresponds to perspective number 1. We're going to have in another presentation, we're going to have a beautiful perspective drawing here, and we're going to label it as number 1, perspective of dining room, and then the viewer can take a look at this floor plan and see it. So let's go ahead and let's create our camera view here. So we're standing on the bubble where it says number 1. And then we're going to create a polygonal lasso tool. Sometimes this works on the first try, sometimes it doesn't. So I'm going to say that the camera view is sitting here. We're going to see all this. I'm drawing the cone of vision. See where that O pops up on my lasso tool? There we go. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to do a right click and we're going to fill. Actually, hold on. We're going to use our gradient tool over here. Let me pause and explore this for a minute. I'll be right back. Okay, let's do our last thing here with our camera view. Now, I'm going to once again show you how to create the camera view. So we're going to use our polygonal lasso tool. If you don't see it over here, sometimes if you hover over, there might be other ones selected. Now I'm going to start by making my triangle. This is showing the viewer where the camera is standing. That's where the one is. And then where they're looking, the cone of vision, sometimes we call that. So you can see the O pops up over there. That means it's ready. Now what I'm going to do is click on my gradient tool. I need to make sure that my swatch right here is selected to white. So if yours is not selected to white, double click on it first and select that white over there. Okay, once we've got that, I'm going to go up here and I'm going to click. If it's not selected for you already, go to basics and we're going to select this one, which goes from solid to alpha or clear. So that's the one we want. And then now all you do is click, make sure your layer's on, then click where you want it to start, where you want it to end. Just click and drag, see? And now you can see the camera view is white to match the annotation bubble, and then it starts dark and goes light. Control deselect and look at that beautiful camera view. So you can see here, we covered a lot of ground in this floor plan. And remember, you can do all these same kind of tricks adjusted for elevation views as well. But you can see here, this is how you import a floor plan created in SketchUp and rendered in SketchUp, adding a title, scale, north arrow, room labels, notes, a scale figure, and camera views.